Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Las Vegas. Welcome to Perform 2024. We are thrilled to have you here with us this morning, whether you are in person or online. It's going to be a great couple of days. We're super excited for the days to come. Now I'm going to start with our theme for this year, which is Make Waves. Now before I get into this, I'll tell a little bit of a story, which is that once we landed this theme, our marketing group came to me and said, Rick, we need the biggest wave you've ever surfed. Now, I'm a cyclist, a runner. Last year after Perform, I went to Costa Rica and did a trail run in the mountains. Not a surfer, but I found myself surfing this amazingly big wave. Form was great, felt awesome. I sent it to the marketing team. They're like, that's not big enough. And so they aborted. Needless to say, that photo did not make the deck. Make Waves, though, is about transformation. It is about disruption. It is about tectonic shifts in our industry that drive enormous change and enormous potential for advancement of all of our respective businesses. And we're going to talk about some of these industry-wide waves in just a bit. But there's also another opportunity in making waves, and that is for each of you. Each of you in your respective businesses have an opportunity to make your own waves, because we can drive immense business transformation together, whether it is driving revenue, enabling competitive advantage, improving supply chain, reducing cost, whatever it might be. We have an opportunity to make waves. And so we thought we would take this theme and really evolve it during the course of the next couple of days. Now, during this session in morning, day one, we're going to cover these elements. I'm going to start out by talking about a few IT megatrends, big waves, if you will. Then we're going to talk about the evolution of that associated with observability and application security. And throughout the course of the morning, we'll talk about our journey together. So let's start with megatrend number one, which is really around cloud modernization. Now, digital transformation is ubiquitous. I think we would all agree with that. And the opportunity in the cloud is enormous. As I mentioned, we have the opportunity to reduce cost, improve customer satisfaction and user experience, enable incredible acceleration of development, delivery of applications, and much more, even though the cloud brings with it enormous complexity. And we'll talk more about that. But the numbers speak for themselves. You look at the hyperscaler growth, and even just yesterday afternoon, Microsoft and GCP or Google reported their results growing the cloud respectively 28%, 26%. Those businesses continue to grow. And if you look at the three major hyperscalers, you see that we have now eclipsed over $200 billion in annualized revenue. And over the last 2 years, that's grown north of 50%. Incredible. Over this 2-year span, we've seen an increase in growth of over $70 billion. And that's due to the engagement of each of us in driving on-premises workloads into cloud workloads. Second, let's talk about the second megatrend, artificial intelligence. Incredible evolution over the last year. I think we would all agree in generative AI. Artificial intelligence seems to be becoming as ubiquitous as digital transformation. There was an interesting publication at Forbes by Paul Daugherty, the CTO of Accenture, when he talked about 4 major tectonic shifts over the last decades. First was the Lisa computer. Lisa computer enabled a graphical user interface to be brought to all of us to bring compute to a much broader array of people than existed before. Second was the internet. which brought content to a wider array of people than ever before. Third was the smartphone. We don't even think about smartphones anymore because all phones seem to be smart that we're using these days. They're all connected. The smartphone put that content in the palm of our hands. And finally, fourth, he talked about AI. AI as having an incredible opportunity to drive immense gains in productivity. So we're going to talk much more about this, and you see that in some of these statistics from our State of AI report from 2024, that AI, based on the feedback and surveys that we've been doing, is becoming all but mandatory to evaluate how you can deliver this kind of productivity. I really like also, though, this stat in the middle that talks about the notion that generative AI is enhanced by other AI techniques. And this is something that we'll talk a lot about in this morning's session. Third is threat protection. I think we would all agree that amidst the notion of digital transformation evolved into artificial intelligence, the explosion of workloads and how people are accessing them is creating enormous threat, incredible vulnerabilities. And these are elements that all of us have to keep in mind in how we manage our businesses. We want to evolve those businesses, but at the same time, we must protect them. Whether it is phishing, ransomware, you name it, we have to be on alert. And as you see some of these stats from our recent CISO survey, it is not shocking to see the complexity in our environments is driving greater risk. What's more interesting, perhaps, than that is this notion of an assumption that AI is becoming more and more crucial in driving that threat protection. Now, one last really important piece that I alluded to at the outset, and that is that each of these, in some sense, digital transformative megatrends, cloud modernization, AI, threat protection, are importantly enabling something even bigger, more critical for our businesses, and that is business transformation. I was, to give you an example, in a meeting recently with the CIO of a large Asia-Pacific digital bank. And the CIO said to me, Rick, we are going to win in our market. Our strategy to win in our market is to differentiate based on software that works better than anybody else in our market. Incredible. Their differentiation to win from a business standpoint, grow market share, increase, accelerate revenue growth, was through better software. I even liked more, though, his next statement, which is, and by the way, Rick, our strategy to deliver better software, software that works better than anybody else's, is Dynatrace. At that point, I wanted to give him a hug. All was well, though. All was well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of these mega trends, but so that you don't just have to hear me talk about them, who better than to have a conversation with about this than the Senior Managing Director and Head of the Cloud First practice at Accenture. So I'd love for you to all join me in welcoming to the stage Andy Tay. Andy? Hello, my friend. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Good to see you. Let's start with digital transformation. So digital transformation, cloud modernization, something you know just a little bit about in a multi-billion-dollar business of Cloud First at Accenture. So one of the stats that is commonly reported is that despite this $200 billion of annualized hyperscaler revenue and all of what Accenture and other GSIs generate in this space, that the world is only maybe 10 to at most 20% moved to the cloud. So what is your perspective on this? It's huge, it's enormous, it's tectonic, but it's only just begun.
The waves have just begun, haven't they? It's fantastic. I love the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 to 20%. And actually, we in Accenture did a study, and we sort of landed at a point where we said, of that, only about 20% of them, Rick, have been modernized.
Yeah.
And of the, you think of that, 20% of the workloads have been modernized. And so you've got 80% lift. And then when you think about modernization in an enterprise, you've got to think about it across the layers. You've got the app layer, the data layer, now the AI layer. And then, of course, you've got the network layer. Network modernization is key as the sort of backbone to really fueling this digital transformation. And then when you add to that the sort of innovations we're seeing coming at us at pace, the Gen AI as an example we saw last year, and then you've got this concept which you touched on, ubiquitous computing or sort of cloud, sort of across borders, and you've now got a multi-cloud, a hybrid cloud, a private cloud, a sovereign cloud, an edge cloud. There's sort of cloud everywhere, and you've got to stay on top of that. And then if you're a business, you've got to operate at speed. And if you're trying to manage all of that and operate at speed, it's super critical that you know where all those microservices that sort of thread your end-to-end business process, where are they, what's the state of them, what's the health of them, and you can monitor, you can analyze, you can optimize. So our partnership is just super critical for us as we sort of go out there and work with our clients on their digital transformation journeys.
Incredible. We have so far to go in many ways. Let's go next to AI, and this is obviously a hot topic. I mentioned Paul Daugherty earlier from Accenture, but he at Davos more recently said that 2023 was a bit of an experiment for AI. 2024 is going to begin to enable production workloads where organizations are actually trying to figure out how to deliver against the productivity gains.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's generating more security threat, more concern. You talk about sort of this notion of resilient AI. Yeah. Talk a little bit further about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we did see, and Paul touched on it, we did see in 2023 a sort of journey of experimentation, and indeed, as you called out earlier, Rick, the hyperscalers are seeing an increasing mix of AI in their revenue mix, and we see in 2024 sort of that scaling continue, but critical to achieving that scale is a convergence of around 5 imperatives that we're seeing. And the first is around enterprises needing to lead with value, not just tech value, but importantly and increasingly, particularly with Gen AI, business value, and truly understanding what you need from the business and working backwards from there. The second is around this notion of a modern cognitive digital core that spans your applications, your data, your AI, your security, which you touched on, and that's just increasingly important to get right when you think of the plethora of sort of architectures out there. And then the third, as we've talked about in the past, Rick, is around people and talent, and as sort of talent and work and workforces get disrupted and changed, it's important that people and leaders come along on that journey. It's really important for leaders now more than ever to truly understand the technologies and how those technologies impact their business. The fourth I'd perhaps maybe touch on is really around responsibility and responsible AI in particular. We recently did a study and we found that 96% of respondents actually mentioned that they would be supportive of government regulation on AI, but only 2% of them have a robust operational responsible AI in place today. So you're operating in a world where, do you trust it? Can you explain it? Don't know. And then trust is a gap area. So you've got this sort of, not only have you got a responsible AI gap between what you intend and what you're executing, but you've got a trust gap as well. And then fifth and final, as you sort of do all of that, we're finding that it's super important just to continuously evolve and continuously reinvent. And reinvention is becoming that sort of default strategy. So the waves, just like your waves, they just keep coming. And it's just important that you keep reinventing.
The human piece is particularly interesting because that's where you get the productivity, is the combination of technology and the human side. We only have about a minute left, but one last question, which I suppose is a little bit self-serving for me to ask you, but by being up here. But
it's good to be self-serving.
Sometimes you got to do it. But the question is, amidst this complexity, amidst the chaos of the environment that we live in, amidst digital transformation and the wave toward business transformation, observability, we believe to be critical, mission critical, along with application security. So talk a little bit about that interaction of where observability and application security fit for you in this whole universe.
Well, I think you've got it absolutely spot on. It is critical. It's mandatory. It's no longer optional. And as we talked about, we've got this plethora of architectures and applications and innovations happening. And in order for businesses to succeed and truly lead, it's important that they have that observability across their estate. They can monitor, they can analyze, they can optimize. And if you think of the disruption with the developer experience, and we have to enable the developers in order to help drive those productivity gains. And so we see observability to be at the core of any digital transformation. So we're super supportive of that and just absolutely love the partnership that we've got going on.
Fantastic. Please join me in thanking Andy Tay. Andy, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.